Today on Grace Uncensored, what if the very moment you blew it again, the same sin you swore you'd never fall into, was the moment God ran toward you instead of away from you?
Once you've heard this, you can't unhear it.
Christianity was never meant to be about striving, guilt, or religious pressure. It's about grace, real, unfiltered, life-changing grace. Welcome to Grace Uncensored, the podcast where we clear away the noise, break free from legalism, and rediscover the freedom, joy, and rest found in Jesus Christ. If you're ready to stop chasing approval and start living in the truth of the gospel, you're in the right place. Now here's Billy McDonald with Grace Uncensored.
Hi, I'm Billy McDonald, and welcome back to Grace Uncensored, the podcast where failure isn't final, love isn't fragile, and grace never gives up on you. Now, before we jump in, let me just say this. If you've been encouraged by what you hear on this podcast, take a second to share it with a friend, hit subscribe, and leave a comment. It's a simple way to spread the message of grace to more people who really need it. All right, let's really get into this. What happens when I blow it again? I'm not talking about just slipping up once. I'm talking about falling flat on your face in the same sin, the one you swore you'd never go back to. You feel like you've drained God's patience dry, like maybe this time He's finally done with you. But friend, that's not what the gospel says. Let's walk through what really happens when you mess up. There's no condemnation at all. Romans 8:1 opens the door wide. It says, "Therefore, there is now no condemnation at all for those who are in Christ Jesus." No condemnation. Not a little, not later, none. And when God says no condemnation, He means no guilt trip, no cold shoulder, no silent treatment. He doesn't say, well, you've crossed the line this time. He says, already paid for, already covered, you're still mine. Grace doesn't downplay sin. It just shifts the spotlight back to where it belongs, on Jesus. You have an advocate, not an accuser. Listen to what 1 John 2:1 says. If anyone sins, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. The word advocate means someone who speaks on your behalf, someone who steps in for you. So picture this. Next time you stumble, Jesus, nail-scarred hands and all, stands in the presence of the Father, and instead of pointing a finger at you, He points to the cross and says, already forgiven, already finished. You're not standing alone. You have an advocate, and He doesn't lose cases. Then there's the story in Luke 15. You know the story. Jesus says this about the Father. He says, while His Son was still a long way off, the Father saw him and felt compassion for him and ran. The Son had blown it. He had a speech rehearsed about how unworthy he was, but the Father didn't wait. He didn't lecture. He ran. That's God's posture toward you. Even when you're covered in failure, limping home, He runs towards you. Grace isn't passive. It's compassion in motion. You are forgiven once and for all. Now, hear what it says. Again, one of my favorite verses in Hebrews 10:14. For by one offering He has perfected for all time those who are sanctified. Perfected for all time. Not until your next mistake. Not until next weekend. Not until you've proven yourself. Jesus didn't die to give you temporary forgiveness. He gave you eternal security. Your forgiveness isn't fragile. It's finished. Think about watching a toddler try to walk for the first time. My two youngest grandchildren, Mac and Remy. Mac is about 2 years old. Remy is about 6 months old. And so Mac's already been through this stage, the toddler trying to walk, and Remy is quickly approaching. It's so fun to watch them as they struggle through this whole process, because they wobble and they stumble, they face plant over and over. But my son and daughter-in-law, they don't scold. They don't say, You're terrible at this. They cheer, they smile, they scoop them back up. And that's exactly how God responds to you. He's not mad at your stumbles. He's cheering you forward because you're His child. So, what happens when you blow it again? Grace doesn't flinch. Jesus doesn't walk away, and your Father never stops running towards you. Just before my final thoughts, if this episode reminded you of the relentless love of grace, take a moment to share it with someone you know. Leave a comment, subscribe, and help more people discover what grace really looks like. And if you're unsure about your relationship with Jesus, or if you've never really grasped this grace that we're talking about, head over to youtube.com/@GraceUncensored777. There's a short, simple video waiting there for you that explains the gospel clearly and why it's truly the best news you'll ever hear. Well, now for my final thoughts. Friend, your story isn't over when you blow it again. Grace is relentless. Jesus is enough. And your Father's arms are still wide open. Next time on Grace Uncensored, what if shame isn't just a feeling but a lie that Jesus has already silenced? Episode 10 is called How to Silence Shame Once and for All. You don't want to miss it. See you then.
You've been listening to Grace Uncensored, where it's not about religion, it's all about real, uncensored grace. If this episode hit home, share it with a friend, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss what's next. Do you have questions or feedback? Drop us a note at billymcdonald@graceuncensored.org. That's billymcdonald@graceuncensored.org. We'd love to hear from you. This is Grace Uncensored, where grace isn't earned. It's already yours. We'll see you next time.